And of course, with that, I want to introduce my guest this morning. He is Mr. Alpha Lorde, President of the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Sure, it's a pleasure having you this morning. And of course, you know, a lot of talk is happening because it is Carnival on the island and we're talking about capacity. One of the things we always hear sometimes is that Tobago is not ready, it cannot cater to the domestic tourism or even international. But where you sit, and maybe before you answer, because we have viewers who may have never heard about this association, tell us a little about the association and who you represent.
So the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association is the largest trade association in the island, and we represent pretty much all the hospitality related as well as ancillary service providers who have a business operating in Tobago in that space.
So when we talk about all, we're talking about the little mom and pops, business model guest houses, the little 2 rooms for rent somewhere.
Correct. Through the Bed and Breakfast Association, they have a representation in our association. So I would say yes. We speak the loudest, most definitely, on all hospitality and tourism matters.
And tell us, how does the association get ready for hosting an event like Carnival in Tobago?
It's not necessarily how the association gets ready, but how the members, with support from the association, get ready. And each hotel or each operator would find itself in a different place based on what its product is.
Right.
Our responsibility at the association is to advocate for the things that would facilitate a smooth, a smooth operation of that activity. So for example, one of the things we were advocating and continue to advocate for is more airlift into Tobago.
Right.
You cannot have a tourism product that is starved of airlift. And we've had continuous conversations, deliberations, and sometimes even fighting with Caribbean Airlines.
Right.
But we're grateful that Caribbean Airlines have added, I think, albeit a bit late, Caribbean Airlines have added additional flights, which are supporting persons out of Trinidad getting into Tobago for the carnival season. We're grateful for that. The seaport, which we wrote to as well, to ensure and advocate that we would have as much vessels sailing to and from, has come up trumps, and we have 3 sailings or 4 sailings per day from, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. So you see, that's the kind of advocacy that the association would push to ensure that individual operators in this space are given the best fighting chance to provide and present their product to the world.
And there are so many factors, as you mentioned, that will contribute to the success of, the hotels and those associated with this type of industry. And we always hear the fight with Caribbean Airlines. And when one party says, hey, we need more flights on the Caribbean Airlines, and you hear that, but the flights are not full capacity, And so we really have to find a middle ground, because it is going to be beneficial to both parties, of course. And as you rightfully said, you can have the best product on the island, but if people cannot come and experience it, then it goes nowhere.
Correct. But the Caribbean Airlines conversation is one that has gone on for some time in more ways than one.
Right.
Post-COVID, we've not to this day in 2024 resumed the number of flights we had pre-COVID between the islands.
Right.
And I can understand Caribbean Airlines filling the gap in the rest of the region with the departure of Liat. I can understand that also their business model calls for them to be profitable. But there is also an economic conversation to be had relative to the economy of Tobago when Caribbean Airlines reduced the flights to the amount that has been reduced to. So any random day, you can't just walk into the airport and get a flight, or better yet, not walk into the airport. Just pick up your phone right now or anything like that and try to book a flight for next week. And there's a challenge to get the date. So we have to get beyond that.
Yes.
We have to figure it out, and the association will continue to work with Cal on figuring it out.
Most definitely. And of course, viewers, we are coming to you live this morning from the Magdalena Grand Beach and Golf Resort, and it's a beautiful, sunny, Friday. I don't know if the weather will change. I know we were under some weather advisory up until midday today for Trinidad and Tobago. So let's see what may happen later. We live on an island. It can rain at any point in time. So let's go back to the association. What type of capacity are we looking at? How many visitors can we accommodate on the island? And what capacity are we at for this weekend?
Right, so we have anywhere from about 3,000 to 4,000 rooms available, depending on how much or who you include in that bucket of rooms available.
Right.
Right. As it relates to the member association, I think even outside of the member association, anybody who has a guest house, bed and breakfast is probably speaking in glowing terms for this weekend. Right. But for the member association, we're looking at 75% occupancy, maybe
Right.
higher, depending on the size and sector. So the larger hotels may be somewhere in the 70-75%.
Right.
The smaller properties would be in the 90-95%. Right? So I think what we're largely describing this year is a far more successful carnival than the previous years, and that speaks to the growth of the carnival. So we're happy. I think bringing Cal back into the conversation, though, is had we had a clear sight of the availability of flights earlier,
Right.
I think some hotels would have been in a stronger position to be. Some hotels would have been able to clearly identify a month, 6 weeks ago, we're sold out.
Right.
You know? On the other hand, because flights are now becoming available, we're now saying, okay, yes, we're looking good, we're looking
Right,
good.
right.
And that's a disservice to the person who wants to plan their vacation, plan their itinerary, and decide to come.
Most definitely.
A lot of Trinidadians would jump on a plane. Like this morning, a little after 6 this morning, I was getting phone calls. Hey, I'm going in the airport and trying to get on a flight. You have rooms available? No, we don't have rooms available at this late hour.
Right.
So you have Trinidadians who would do that, but you also have the international market who wants to come.
Yeah.
But they want to have their stuff planned.
Right.
And if they're not able 6 weeks out to get confirmed flights from Trinidad to Tobago and back based on their international flight arrivals, it's a loss. We had a general meeting about a month, September, in September. And one member reported losing 100 room nights of business from an international group because they couldn't get
That
their
connecting.
arrangements settled with Cal for that connection. So we have to do better about putting it out there earlier.
Most definitely. And when we look at, and though you may not be able to, of course, give the statistics because we are still into this present mode of the event and people arriving. But when you look at maybe last year, if you can speak to last year, how did things shape up? Because I heard you say that it's successful this year. How are you able to compare last year, even from the very first year to the second year to this third year in terms of arrivals and the capacities at the hotels?
I would say year-on-year growth, right? The growth between year 1 and year 2 is noticeable. The growth between year 2 and year 3, I think, is clear. Hotels last year didn't do 50% occupancy.
Right.
So, and this year you have most hotels saying I'm 75% or north of that in terms of occupancy, right? So I think the growth and the energy and the atmosphere, everything is a whole lot more palpable. You can feel the energy this year, a week out as compared to last year. So I think even on that regard, the THA through the Division of Tourism, the Festivals Commission and all the agencies that would have supported it have done a better job of branding and marketing the carnival this year. It's really good.
I think it started quite early too, so that of course helped.
It started much earlier than in previous years, right? And then even this year now, to see the dates for next year and the following year already out, it kind of sends a message to persons who came in this year: book the dates.
Right, yes.
Save the dates.
Yes.
Right? And people are going to come in, they're going to have a great time. I know there are a number of significant events and then the actual event day, right? And people are going to come in and say, you know what? I enjoyed myself at this hotel. I enjoyed myself at this guest house. I think, let me talk to the manager here. Let me talk to the owner here. Because I already know the dates of the event next year. Book me in, right? So it also gives hotels an opportunity to start building their book of business today.
Most definitely.
Right? Because I know when Carnival is next year. I know it's on. Right? And that level of advertising, branding is also important. And I think this year, clearly we're bringing a lot more Trinidadians into the fold. And we're grateful for the Trinidadians coming over and enjoying it with us as well. And I think the story of Carnival can be told in different ways, from different perspectives, from different people. But Trinis always tell the story of Carnival best. Right? So when you have them coming and enjoying it and telling the story of Carnival, you could only see it growing more.
And of course, most of you know, this is not my season, right? I'm not a Carnival person. However, this is where I live, and I think coming things of Tobago, I'm always proud about it, and to see that growth and development, and to see improvement. And I really hope, because I know it's the politicians are also making it a political issue, and I really hope if the the guards change whenever, that someone new will not come and say, well, that's not what we wanted, but we'll really look at just improving the event and making it better for the people, not just of Tobago, but to the world at large, because it is something that is really becoming its own event. And again, we hear the talk of it's competing with the national Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, but this is definitely a totally, it's a totally different experience. It's marketed a particular way and giving you that Tobago experience. And I know one of the challenges, of course, CAL, and we will always talk about Caribbean Airlines. I think sometimes if we talk about them too much, they have to learn to pay us sometimes to talk about them. But nevertheless, and as we look to wrap up, what other challenges you think may hinder the benefits that could come to the members of the association?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you started discussing it from a political point of view. I think we ought not to let it become political. Let the private sector continue to drive the initiative, obviously with the support from the THO, regardless of who's in power. But in terms of the authenticity and the organic nature of it, it could be driven by the private sector and be a great economic provider for the island. And I think if it remains in that vein, politics have nothing to do with it, number one. So I think that's one. Number two, and this is not an admonition to the members per se, but members have to remember that we're competing on a global scale.
Definitely.
And therefore, we have to use the lessons learned from this year to make sure that our product on an individual and a collective basis grows. Right? We have to look at what the market is doing internationally and say to ourselves, I have a 2-room list, but this must be the best 2-bedroom in the world. And I have a 250-room hotel. This must be the best 250-room hotel in the world. Our brand must always strive for excellence. And I think if we're doing that, and we're looking at inwardly and saying, you know what, I'm going to walk around my hotel and check it this way. I'm going to walk around my property and check it this way. This is the service standard I want. 2 rooms, 250 rooms, it doesn't make a difference. Excellence must be the motto.
And I like that. Excellence must be the motto. And of course, to our viewers who may work in the industry, yes, you may have the support of your managers, etc., but it really boils down because you are the one interacting with that guest, and you can make it or break it. And we know that we love social media, and unfortunately, those of us who have the awesome experiences, we seldom take to social media and said, hey, I went this place, it was grand, but let one little thing go wrong. Oh, we have a lot to see. So let's remember that even that one slip up, that one mistake can cause many others not to come. So I want to thank you so much for your time this morning.
It was a pleasure being here. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
And I really want to, wish the members of your association all the best, not just for this weekend, but of course, blessings on your businesses as you continue to contribute to Tobago's economy and make Tobago stand out there. So viewers, at this time, we go for a quick break, and when I return, my second guest will join me this morning, so stay tuned.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning as the passion start to rise. The energy fill the sky.